Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me today. My name's Dan, and this is going to be a very short broadcast. If you followed me for any length of time at all, you've heard me talk about using a Collage app to make corrections on portraits. And I'm going to show you the process that I go through because it dawned on me it might be instructive. So, here we go. Oh, wait. Forgot one formality. The Daily Art Adventure number 629. Can you believe it? Fixing portraiture using a Collage app. All right, now bear with the earthquake for a minute. That was Lake, by the way. Say Lake.
Hi.
There, Lake's. The kids know they're welcome to hang out in my office when I'm broadcasting, as long as they're well behaved and quiet. All right, now before we go do anything, let me show you on my backup phone the app that I'm using. This is the app functioning. Okay, so when you open the app, you have choices, what shape collage you want to use, but that's not what I want to show you. I just want to show you the here we go. All right, so it's this photo collage. I know that's slightly out of focus. This one right here is the one we're talking about, and it does matter which one you use because many of the collage apps that are out there on the market, they contort the ratios of the picture to make it fit in the square, and this app does not do that. Does that make sense? So you have to get the right kind. All right, now again, if you have no idea what I'm doing here, then please go back and watch yesterday's broadcast, Daily Art Adventure number 628. This is a photograph. This is a photograph of my painting, and this is the photograph from which I'm copying. Okay? Actually, I should have done it the other way around. This is a photograph of my painting. Bear with me. This is a picture of my painting. Picture of my painting. Got it? And this is the photograph from which I'm doing this. Then I take this image and I turn it into a mirror image again. This is all repeat. This is the part that I want to show you, to walk through with me. Now, please understand, just for what it's worth, that in reality, the painting I'm working on is about half the size. In other words, this boy's face is only slightly larger than my thumb. So this is actually a blown-up version of the painting. So it's quite small. All right, so here's what I'm doing. This was as good as I could do yesterday, given, you know, where it's coming from. So now, here's the main thing I want you to hear from me. I'm going to use artists' language, not non-artist language. Now, that sounds really stupid. Let me explain what I mean by that. Okay, and I say this because some of you budding artists, you might be stuck in the world of using the wrong language. It's real easy. I think it's easy to demonstrate to you what is the wrong. So I'm looking for what needs to be corrected here. And by the way, it's easier for me to see my mistakes in a mirror image than it would be down here. So I'm looking for mistakes. What's wrong with this when I look at these? Now, by the way, this does look like the young man Jeremiah. You can tell it's him, but it makes you scratch your head and go, yeah, but something's not quite right. And I already see several things that are not right. So I guess it goes without saying that, at least for me, the way I do portraits, it's a process, step by step basis. If I was a freaking genius, I could do it perfectly first time. But I happen to know that even some people that are very, very, very good and very, very, very famous portrait painters don't get it right first time. That's a little bit of a joke, understatement, because almost nobody does. But anyway, here's wrong kind of language. Okay, so if you're an artist, you do not use this kind of language. Here it is. Well, his nose looks a little too blank. His eye looks a little too blank. his cheek looks a little too flat. His forehead looks a little too round. His nose looks a little too bulbous. His lips look okay. That's enough. All of that is wrong. Counterproductive. Not only is it not productive, it actually will damage your skill in trying to do portrait. Number one, you don't use the anatomical words. When you're trying to make corrections, I mean, if you're talking to somebody else and trying to tell them what you're doing, you can say, I'm working on his nose. But when you're talking inside your own brain, you don't use the word nose. Oh boy, now I've gotten in deep. Why? Because if you use the word nose, then something like this will suddenly show up in your brain. Right? A nose will show up as soon as you say nose. As soon as you say forehead, something like this will show up in your brain. If you say mouth, something like this will show up in your brain. Are you with me? And you do not want any of these things popping up in your brain when you're trying to make real. Oh, that was all off camera, wasn't it? There we go. Sorry. Stop making excuses. I'll just do the best I can. I'm going to move you this way. So hopefully I'll be on camera a little bit longer. Again, I'm working without my preferred. So what kind of language do you use? I'll turn the page over again so I can see. Here's the kind of language you do use. You say either this line, okay, so that's a good word, this line or this point, and that's pretty much all. This line or this point needs, either one of those needs to move to the left or to the right or up or down or any combination thereof. Needs to move up and to the right. And then the other language you use is like 1/16 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch or 1/64th of an inch. This is the kind of technical language you use. This line needs to move this way, north, south, east, west, by this much. This is a proper language, not his nose looks too smushy, his lips look too pushy, his eyes look too mushy. Worthless language. Excise it completely out of your language if you want to be an artist. You do not say, number one, you don't say the anatomical thing you're working on. You say point or line. This line needs to move left, north, south, east, west. And you could say a scunch, half a scunch, if you know in your brain know what a scunch is, or a trick, or a tick, or just even the words, even the word slightly is not good for me. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, before the internet, I'm a fairly serious classical guitar player, and I went to the library and checked out a book by Segovia, the greatest classical famous guitar player in the world at the time. And it was how to play guitar. And he said, you should trim these nails so that they're just barely visible over the top of your finger. And believe me, folks, that is musician talk, stupid musician talk. He should not have said barely visible. He should have said something like, the tip of your nail should be 1/64th, 1/32nd, 1/16th of an inch beyond the end of your finger. That's, to say barely visible is stupid, because to one person, this line is barely close to this line. That's how one person's mind thinks. Another person's mind thinks, no, those two lines are barely close to each other. Do you know what I mean? So you don't use words like a little bit, and stuff like that. Meaningless language. Excise it completely. If you want to be a good artist, you don't use anatomy and you don't use emotional terms. Like his brow looks too worried. His eyes look too concerned. You don't use emotional words. You don't use romantic words like her lips don't look full enough. Worthless language. Worthless. Now, understand when you're talking to a non-artist, a non-artist will say things like that because they're a non-artist. But if you want to be an artist, you don't even receive words like that. You say, well, her lips don't look full enough. Worthless language. I know I'm saying this really strongly because somebody needs to hear this. Worthless language. You don't say, well, her eyes don't look pretty enough. Stupid language. No, you excise all that emotional crap language out of your vocabulary and romantic language and anatomical language. What you do is this line, this line or this point needs to move north, south, east, west, about 1/100th of an inch. All right, so let's do it. I hope that makes sense. Somebody else will need to hear that. So now let's get to work on Jeremiah's face. I see several things already, and that's why I'm going to start with one thing. I'm going to start at his forehead. Number one, this line, listen to my language, this line right here needs to rotate forward. Looks to me like about 1/8 of an inch on this piece of paper. Now I have, believe it or not, 4-color pen here, and then another pen that writes white, because there's times when that shows up. All right, so I'm just going to draw it. His forehead. Do you see that this forehead, I made it go back too far? So I'm going to call that number 1. So I actually write down number 1. That line moves. Okay. Let me continue then down his face. I'm going to back up just a minute, because here's what's really most wrong with his face. What is most wrong is his mouth is too close to his eyebrows. This is crunched together. Do you see how this is spread out a little bit more? Crunched, spread out. And by the way, spread out and crunched is north-south-east language. Okay, it's up, down, up, down, up, down. It's not romantic language. Like, his face looks scrunchy. No, that's not what I mean. I'm not talking in romantic language, meaningless, stupid language. I'm talking about his eyebrow and his mouth are crunched together, too close together. So that means that either his forehead needs to move up or his chin needs to move down. I'm thinking. I'm going to draw, looking at the photograph, I'm going to draw what I see as and his chin's shape is a little bit off. But no, I don't think I can move his chin down any further without moving his shoulders and his whole body, and that's not good. So it looks to me like we're going to be moving all of the features of his face up. Now, that is not happy news to me as an artist. Okay, so I'm going to label this number 2, by the way. Number 2, his chin is a little bit different. Roundness comes out there, comes down there, and so on. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say everything needs to move up. Okay, and that is bad news for me. That is bad news to say that I have to redraw all of these features. That's the bad news. Here's the possibly good news. I'm just going to call this number 3. That is, I'm raising up. You say this line moves up and this line moves up. I'm going to draw it that way so I can understand my language when I come back later. And I'm obsessive compulsive, so I put a little box around each number. His eyebrow is not too bad. No, it needs to, so it's going to move up. I mean, because everything's moving up. I'm going to go ahead and draw it up. It needs to move forward a little bit. Come on, pen. Come on. Pardon me a minute. Evidently that red pen doesn't want to work, so that's too bad. All right, that's enough of that. Let's use blue. His eyebrow is not bad. Now his brow right here needs to cut in a little quicker. So do you hear that language? Cut in a little quicker. That's like that is say it comes down and to the left a little bit quicker. 1, 2, 3. That's number 4. And then, good news, the whole ridge of his nose needs to move up and to the left about 32nd of an inch. So that's number 5. Okay, so this is the part that I hope if you're an artist that you're getting. You don't use stupid language like anatomy parts. You don't say, now, of course, I said his nose, but that's because I'm talking to you guys. If I'm here by myself, I just say this line needs to move up. Does that make sense? Now, I told you a minute ago, that's bad news that I have to redraw all of these features. Maybe I'll do another broadcast later today where I show you how to move entire features. And here's the good news. It's not quite as bad as it sounds. Once you've rendered a feature, like an eye, nose, ear, mouth, once you've rendered a feature on a face, and this is rendered, the eye was a little bit too big. So again, top line move down, bottom line move up. And it is a little bit too big. But once you've got it rendered well, moving it is not the bigger problem, and that's a separate broadcast. I'll just show you why that's not quite as bad newsy as it originally sounds. It sounds like, oh no, it took me an hour to do that eye, yeah, and it'll take you about 10 minutes or 15 minutes to correct it. So in the course of doing a portraiture, I don't know about you, but 15 minutes is not, it's not all that bad. Okay, now, again, I'm talking to you guys, so I'm going to call that his nostril. If I'm talking to myself, I say this line needs to move to the left. This line needs to move to the right. So I'm stretching out his nostril a little bit. Oh, wait, let me go back and do my numbers. 4, 5, 6. Whoops. It helps if you write the right number. His hairline, that line right there, tucks in a little bit. Again, I'm using the word hair because I'm talking to somebody else. That is you. But this line here needs to move to the right, almost 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, I'm going to move his nostril up a little bit too. So that's modification number 7. And then I think we're getting very close. His mouth is nearly perfect. Here it is. I got a tiny little, need to extend that right there. That's 8. And boy, when I go down to my painting downstairs and at my easel, that is going to be such a tiny thing. I'm going to make these changes with magnifying lenses on my glasses, okay? Because the painting I'm doing is so small. And this angle, this line right here needs to angle. I'm switching. It needs to rotate. It needs to angle that way. All of this, I think, is okay. All right, now his ear. His ear is not okay. And I am making a mistake here that is classic Dan Nelson mistake. By the way, it's a good idea to do enough portraits in your lifetime that you begin to detect what your besetting faults are. That is what you tend to do, and I'm doing it right here. And that is, for me, one of the things I tend to make not enough distance between, say, the back of the eye and the front of the ear. And I'm looking now and looking and say, oh, doggone it, I did it again. But I know to look for it now. Does that make sense? And also his ear is a little bit too low. So again, I'm using the word ear because I'm talking to you guys. If you guys aren't here, I'm just saying this line needs to move up and to the right about 1/8 of an inch. This line. I don't care what the heck it is. I don't care if it's an ear. I don't care if it's a elbow or a fingernail. I don't care about anatomy when it comes to drawing it right. If you use anatomical words, you're likely to screw yourself up. His earlobe, again, this line right here needs to move up about 1/8 of an inch. I need to go back and do some numbers now. I didn't number the whole eye thing. 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to call that moving his eye up. 9, 10. Bottom here, move up. That's 11. And then the back of it. And you could say to me, as I'm saying to myself, well, how could you be so stupid? Why did you make all these mistakes? And the answer is because before I did this painting, I had even more mistakes that I corrected in this one. Does that make sense? Why is this wrong? Why isn't it perfect? Well, because I started somewhere worse than this and got it a whole lot closer with this painting, but I didn't get it quite perfect. Now his hairline is slightly, again, here I'm using anatomical terms because I'm talking to you guys. So in my head, I'm going, this line, I don't care what the heck of anatomy it is, it doesn't matter. It's a line. It needs to move to the right about 1/8 of an inch. And this line right here also needs to move up. The white pen's not working so well today either, is it? So that's number 13. That moves up. And a little change right here. 14, the back of this head needs to come out a little bit. And again, believe me, I'm sure there are people out there who are way better at portraiture than I am, and they may not have to work as hard as I do. Well, good news is in portraiture we don't get awarded for how little work we have to do to accomplish it. What we get recognized for in portraiture is how accurate and tasteful and all kinds of other things, but we don't get prizes for not working hard. So it doesn't matter if you have to work hard to accomplish it. You just keep busting your buns and you do the work that needs to be done. 15, I have changed the angle of this line just a little bit. And finally, the last one I think is I'm going to change his collar again slightly. So that's number 16. So I've come up so far with, so you can imagine if I just came up with 16 modifications that I need to make to this painting the way it is now. After I do those 16, is it possible that I still will miss some other modifications? The answer is absolutely it's possible. Likely. Because I'm making so many changes, how many? 16 to be exact, that in the course of making these, I'll be overlooking other things. Now, I'm going to try not to overlook them as you can imagine, but chances are very good that I will overlook them. All right. So this is a mirror image of both my painting and the photograph. In the painting, he's actually facing this way. So when I go downstairs to my oil painting that's on my easel right now, this is what I'll be looking at. And if I look at these notes and try to make changes here, I'm going to go, right? It's quite difficult. So believe it or not, and I won't make you watch me do this next step, but it's important for you to understand what I'm doing. The next step is I transfer all of these markings. So here, and I do it by number. Number 1, here it was. I'll remember that. The angle of his forehead needs to come forward. So this line rotates slightly. Rotates north, east, if you will. Moves up and to the right. And that's number 1. So I'm going to take all of these markings. What is number 2? There's 1, 3, 4, 5. I bet I forgot to do number 2. It was his eyebrow. I did the eyebrow and then forgot to write it. So, okay. Mistakes will happen. Okay. And we're raising his eyebrow up. And again, now I'm looking at this photograph. I'm not just blindly following these instructions. I'm looking at this photograph to say, is that right? How much do I move it up? And, okay, so that's number 2. You don't have to put boxes around them, but I do it because I'm obsessive compulsive, and obsessive compulsive is a great way to be when you're doing portraits. Because this is not sloppy business, this is technical, analytical business. If you're doing real portraits, now if you're doing modern art, crazy, crappy stuff, like, forgive me, I don't dislike all of Picasso's stuff, but I do dislike a lot of it. And I very much dislike the people who were damaged by him in their art career by being influenced towards sloth. All right, that's another preaching sermon for another time. I'll save that. Now, number 4, the bridge of his nose needs to turn in a little bit more quickly. And then number 5, this line right here moves up and to the right about a 1/16 of an inch. I think last time I called it a 32nd. Doesn't matter. Yeah, if you really want to, you can get a ruler out here and measure it, but I don't need that. I don't need to do that. And his nose tucks in, and then that was number 5. Number 6, I kind of jumping around here a little bit. His hairline moves in right there. Okay, that's number 6. All right, to get the idea, I'm going to stop there. That's plenty, too much for you, but I do hope that that's instructive for you. So when I finish here, I'll have all of these markings transferred to this image. Then I take this downstairs to my oil painting studio, and it's a matter of, and of course it's real small, so I'll put on my super magnifying glasses, get out my teeny tiny brushes, stick out my tongue, and do a whole bunch of tongue painting to make all of these changes. How many come up with? 16 changes. And then I'll let it dry, and I'll look at it tomorrow with fresh eyes, and hopefully I'll find that it's good. All right, let me look at your chats here. Can I do that? I think I can. Oh yeah, there we go. Hey, Uncle 60, good to see you again. I was wondering what you did for a living. You're retired. Good. And the curve sweeps too deep. 1/8 in your pick seems to have less of a curve at the eye level. Boy, I wish I'd caught you when you were caught that. Um, are you talking about the eyebrow? Come back to me, Uncle, if you are. His chin to his lid has a 1/8 inch deeper curve. Chin to his lid, eyelid, I presume, has a 1/8 deeper curve. Yours is a little flatter. Okay, I just saw that. Huh. Backseat, yeah, backseat critic. Thank you, Horatio. Appreciate your company, and I'm glad we'd have these little chats. I hope that's helpful, and I do recommend it. Uh, it's only Chino his lip. Try that again. Chino, chin. Don't you love correction? Chin to his lip. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. Chin to lip. Oh, thank you, thank you. What are you saying? Let me go back now. His chin to his lip has one. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you. I did catch that. Let me make sure. Let me turn you around and let's make sure I got it. We're talking this right here, right there. Chin to lip has a deeper curve, and I didn't label that, but I should have. I'm going to call that. Is this number 3? I think I can't read my writing. That's bad. Okay, so I'm going to call that 3.5 to make sure I drew it the right way, but then didn't label it. I think I was counting all this as one correction, but that's not a good idea. That's a little bit too much. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Ratio. Appreciate it. All right, I have work to do, places to go, and in fact, I'm delivering a painting. I need to interrupt this broadcast to deliver a painting, which is always good news. Haven't been paid for it yet, but it will be. So I certainly hope to broadcast later this afternoon, either when I'm working on this portrait, and then I've got another project or two up my sleeve. Thank you guys. Appreciate Ratio. Appreciate your company, and appreciate the rest of you guys. 3.5. There we go. Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.